The warning lights flashed red across the command center of Earth Defense Station Luna. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the main display watching the incoming transmission signal grow stronger. 50 years had passed since humanity first met. The aliens, and in all that time, the Galactic Coalition had never called Earth directly. Jake's hands gripped the metal railing as the massive screen filled with static. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, preparing to receive whatever message was coming from deep space. The Coalition had kept humanity locked in their own solar system for half a century, watching them like prison guards watching inmates. The static cleared and an enormous insect-like creature appeared on screen. Its compound eyes reflected the light from a dozen different angles, and its mouth parts clicked together as it spoke. This was Arbiter Zex Thalan, one of the most powerful beings in the Coalition government. Humans of the third planet, the alien's voice buzzed through the speakers. I am Arbiter Zex Thalan of the Galactic Coalition. Your species has violated the containment agreement established 50 years ago. Your ships have been detected beyond the approved boundaries of your star system. Jake felt his stomach drop. Earth's secret missions to explore nearby star systems had been discovered. For the past 5 years, human scouts had been mapping local space, searching for resources and possible threats. They thought they had been careful enough to avoid detection. Furthermore, the alien continued, your colonization of the fourth planet and expansion of military installations represents a clear breach of your provisional status. The Coalition Council has determined that immediate action is required. The creature's mandibles clicked faster, a sign that Jake had learned meant anger or aggression. You will surrender all vessels currently beyond your planet's atmosphere. All military satellites and space stations will be powered down and prepared for Coalition oversight. Your species will submit to full supervision until you prove worthy of true membership. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Jake stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. The Coalition was demanding complete surrender. After 50 years of careful growth and development, humanity was being told to give up everything they had built in space. Lieutenant Commander Amy Brooks broke the silence. Sir, should we send a response? Jake shook his head. Not yet. Get me a direct line to President Carter immediately. On Earth, President Linda Carter sat in the Oval Office surrounded by her top advisors. The secure communication link to Luna Station crackled to life, and Jake's face appeared on her personal screen. Madam President, Jake began, his voice tight with tension. We've received an ultimatum from the Coalition. They know about our expansion beyond the solar system. Carter leaned forward in her chair. She had been elected specifically because of her experience with alien relations, but this was beyond anything she had prepared for. What are their demands? Complete surrender of all space-based assets. Full supervision of human activities. They want us to go back to being prisoners in our own system. The President looked around the room at her advisors. General Peter Hayes, a veteran of Earth's Defense Forces, spoke first. Madam President, we have to consider the reality of our situation. The Coalition has technology that's centuries ahead of ours. Their weapons could turn our cities to glass. Admiral Kate Sullivan, head of Earth Space Navy, disagreed. With respect, General, that's exactly what they want us to think. My intelligence teams have been monitoring Coalition communications for years. Their military is spread across thousands of star systems. The nearest enforcement fleet is at least 4 months away from Earth. Carter studied the data that Sullivan had placed on her desk. Secret reports from human scouts showed Coalition patrol routes, supply lines, and military deployments. The picture that emerged was surprising. The Coalition was vast, but that vastness was also their weakness. How certain are you about these numbers? Carter asked. Very certain, Madam President. The Coalition rules through fear and the threat of overwhelming force. But they've never had to deal with a species that refused to back down. Most aliens surrender the moment they see a Coalition warship. General Hayes stood up, his face red with frustration. You're talking about a war we cannot win. Human ships are toys compared to their battle cruisers. Our weapons are primitive, our shields are decades behind theirs. Sullivan smiled grimly. Their ships are bigger and more powerful, yes, but they're also slow and predictable. Coalition tactics haven't changed in centuries because they've never needed to adapt. They rely on their technology to intimidate enemies into surrender. Carter felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. 50 years ago, when the Coalition first made contact, humanity had been given a choice: join as a junior member, under strict supervision, or face destruction. Earth's leaders had chosen survival, accepting the restrictions that kept humanity confined to their home system. But humanity had not been idle during those 50 years. Earth's population had grown to 12 billion people. Mars now hosted 3 million colonists. The asteroid belt hummed with mining operations, and research stations orbited every planet in the solar system. Humanity had built a civilization that spanned their entire star system. "What about our allies?" Carter asked. "Are there other species in the Coalition who might support us?" Sullivan pulled up another report. "That's the interesting part. My scouts have detected signs of unrest in several Coalition systems. There are species that have been under Coalition control for centuries. Some of them might be willing to rebel if they saw that resistance was possible." The room fell quiet as everyone considered the implications. Earth would not just be fighting for their own freedom, but potentially inspiring a galaxy-wide revolution against Coalition rule. Carter stood up and walked to the window overlooking the White House lawn. In the distance, she could see the Washington Monument reaching toward the sky. For over 2 centuries, that monument had stood as a symbol of human determination and independence. Now humanity faced the same choice their ancestors had faced: freedom or submission. "Admiral Sullivan," Carter said without turning around, "how long would it take to prepare our defenses?" "Our ships are already on high alert. Captain Morrison has Luna Station ready for combat. The Mars defense grid is operational. If we're going to make a stand, we're as ready as we'll ever be." Carter turned back to face her advisors. Her decision would affect not just Earth but every human being in the solar system. 12 billion lives hung in the balance. "General Hayes, you're right that this is a war we might not win using conventional thinking. But Admiral Sullivan is also right that the Coalition has never faced an enemy that refused to surrender." Carter's voice grew stronger as she spoke. "Humanity has spent 50 years preparing for this moment, whether we knew it or not." She moved to her desk and activated the global communication system. In moments, she would be speaking to every human being in the solar system, from the crowded cities of Earth to the research stations orbiting Neptune. "My fellow humans," Carter began, her voice carrying across space to millions of ears. "Today we face a choice that will define our species for generations to come. We can accept the chains that others would place upon us, or we can declare that humanity bows to no one." The president paused, looking directly into the camera. "I have made my decision. Earth recognizes no authority over Terran skies. We are a free people, and we will remain free. Let the galaxy know that humanity will not kneel." The transmission ended and Carter knew there was no going back. Humanity had just declared war on the most powerful force in the galaxy. 3 weeks after President Carter's declaration, the Coalition's response arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. 6 massive alien warships dropped out of hyperspace near Pluto, their dark hulls gleaming with weapons that could level entire cities. Each ship was twice the size of humanity's largest vessels, powered by technology that Earth's scientists could barely understand. Commander Veltoth stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the primitive human settlements scattered across their star system. The reptilian Saurian had crushed 17 rebellions during his long military career. In every case, the sight of Coalition warships had been enough to make the rebels surrender immediately. "Scan their defenses," Veltoth ordered his weapons officer. "I want to know exactly how pathetic their military truly is." The scan results appeared on his screen moments later. Human ships were scattered throughout the solar system, most of them small patrol vessels and cargo haulers. Their largest warship was barely 1/10 the size of his own vessel. Veltoth's lipless mouth curved into what passed for a smile among his species. Open a channel to all human frequencies, he commanded. Let them hear the voice of their destruction. On Luna Station, Captain Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet approach. His tactical displays showed the enormous size difference between the coalition ships and Earth's defense forces. By every measure, humanity was outgunned and outmatched. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Amy Brooks called from her station. The lead ship is transmitting on all frequencies. The main screen filled with the image of Commander Veltoth. The alien's yellow eyes stared coldly at the camera as he spoke. Humans, I am Commander Veltoth of the Coalition Enforcement Division. Your pathetic declaration of independence has amused the Council, but this game ends now. Jake felt his crew tense around him. The alien's voice carried the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. You have 1 hour to surrender all military vessels and prepare for occupation, Veltoth continued. Resist, and your entire species will be reduced to scattered atoms floating in space. Choose wisely. The transmission ended, leaving Luna Station's command center in grim silence. Jake looked around at his officers, seeing fear mixed with determination on their faces. These men and women had trained their entire lives for this moment, but training was different from facing an enemy with superior technology. Brooks, Jake said quietly, send a message to all Earth forces. Tell them to prepare for combat. Amy's fingers moved across her console, sending coded signals to every human ship in the solar system. On Mars, Colonel Rick Turner received the order and began powering up the planet's defense grid. Near Jupiter, Captain Danny Martinez turned his small corvette toward the approaching enemy fleet. Throughout the system, hundreds of human vessels began moving into attack positions. Commander Veltoth watched the human response with amusement. Their tiny ships were actually preparing to fight him. It would be entertaining to crush them before moving on to more important matters. All ships, advance to attack formation, he ordered. Let us end this quickly. The Coalition fleet moved deeper into the solar system, their massive engines leaving trails of exotic particles in space. They expected the humans to break formation and flee at any moment, as every other species had done when faced with overwhelming force. But the humans did something unexpected. Instead of running, they attacked. Captain Martinez led the first wave, diving his corvette straight toward the Coalition flagship. His ship was so small that the alien sensors barely registered it as a threat. Veltoth's weapons officer hesitated for a crucial second, unsure whether such a tiny vessel was worth targeting. That hesitation cost them. Martinez's ship slammed into the flagship's forward shields, overloading them with a concentrated plasma burst. The shields flickered and died, leaving the massive alien vessel exposed. Impossible! Veltoth roared as his ship shuddered under the impact. How did such a primitive vessel penetrate our defenses? Before his crew could answer, a dozen more human ships swarmed around the flagship, firing everything they had at the now vulnerable hull. The Coalition ship's armor held, but warning lights began flashing across Veltoth's bridge. Throughout the solar system, similar scenes played out as human pilots threw their ships at the alien fleet with desperate courage. Lieutenant Commander Amy Brooks led a squadron of fighters in coordinated attacks, using their small size and speed to dart between the Coalition ships like angry insects. The alien vessels were powerful, but they had been designed to fight other large warships in traditional formations. Their weapons moved too slowly to track the fast human fighters, and their targeting systems struggled to lock onto such small, agile targets. Captain Jake Morrison coordinated the battle from Luna Station, watching as his outgunned forces slowly began to gain an advantage through pure determination and unconventional tactics. All units, focus fire on damaged sections, he ordered. Don't let them repair their shields. One by one, the Coalition ships began to take serious damage. The Kido humans lost vessels too, brave pilots sacrificing themselves to create openings for their comrades. The battle raged for 18 hours, turning the space around Earth into a graveyard of twisted metal and burning plasma. Commander Veltoth found himself in an impossible situation. His superior technology meant nothing when the enemy refused to fight by the established rules of space combat. These humans fought like wild animals, throwing themselves at his ships without regard for their own safety. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've lost 2 vessels completely. 3 more are severely damaged. The humans are not responding to our intimidation tactics." Veltoth stared at the tactical display in disbelief. How could primitive humans be defeating his elite fleet? Every military doctrine said this should be impossible. The answer came when Captain Danny Martinez, his corvette badly damaged and life support failing, made one final attack run. Instead of trying to escape, he aimed his ship directly at the Coalition flagship's engine core. "For Earth," Martinez whispered into his communicator as his ship accelerated toward the alien vessel. The collision destroyed both ships in a brilliant explosion that lit up the darkness of space. Commander Veltoth died still trying to understand how humans could be so willing to sacrifice themselves for victory. The remaining Coalition ships, leaderless and badly damaged, began to retreat toward the edge of the solar system. Human fighters pursued them, ensuring they would not return soon. On Mars, Colonel Rick Turner watched the alien fleet disappear into hyperspace. The red planet's defense grid powered down, its weapons no longer needed. Around him, colonists cheered and embraced, celebrating humanity's first victory against the mighty Coalition. Captain Jake Morrison stood on Luna Station's observation deck, looking out at the debris field that marked the battle site. Earth had won, but the cost had been terrible. Hundreds of brave men and women had died to protect their homeworld. Dr. Helen Foster arrived from Europa Station with her research team, eager to examine the wreckage of the Coalition ships. Every piece of alien technology they could recover would help humanity prepare for the larger battles that were surely coming. "Sir," Amy Brooks approached Morrison with a communication tablet. "We're receiving messages from across human space. Everyone wants to know what happens next." Morrison nodded grimly. The Coalition would not ignore this defeat. More ships would come, larger fleets with better preparation. But something important had changed in the past day. Humanity had proven they could fight and win against impossible odds. "Send a message to President Carter," Morrison said. "Tell her the Coalition knows we're serious now, and tell her we'll be ready for whatever comes next." News of the victory spread throughout the solar system and beyond. For the first time in galactic history, a species had successfully resisted Coalition enforcement. The impossible had happened, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 years had passed since humanity's first victory against the Coalition fleet. What began as a simple demand for surrender had grown into a war that stretched across dozens of star systems. The Coalition Council, embarrassed by their defeat at Earth, had committed massive resources to crushing the human rebellion once and for all. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of her flagship, the EDS Defiance, watching enemy supply ships burn in the distance. Her fleet had just completed another successful raid on Coalition forces, striking fast and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. The Defiance was a hybrid vessel, built using human engineering combined with captured alien technology. "That's the 3rd supply convoy this month," reported Captain Ben Parker, her tactical officer. "Coalition forces in this sector will be running short on weapons and fuel soon." Sullivan nodded with satisfaction. Earth's strategy had evolved far beyond simple defense. Human forces now operated throughout Coalition space, using guerrilla tactics that the aliens had never encountered before. Instead of fighting large battles they could not win, humans struck at weak points and vanished like ghosts. "Set course for the Titan system," Sullivan ordered. "Colonel Phillips needs reinforcement for the defense line." Hundreds of light years away, Colonel Sarah Phillips crouched behind a makeshift barricade on Titan's frozen surface. Coalition ground forces had been trying to capture the moon's strategic mining facilities for 6 months, but human defenders continued to hold them back. Phillips watched through her scope as alien soldiers advanced across the ice fields. "Wait for my signal," she whispered into her communicator. Her troops were outnumbered 3 to 1, but they knew the terrain better than any alien invader. 3. Coalition soldiers moved in perfect formation, their advanced armor gleaming under Titan's pale sun. They expected the humans to retreat as they had done on other worlds, Instead, Phillips triggered a series of hidden explosives that sent chunks of ice flying in all directions. "Now," she shouted, and her soldiers opened fire from concealed positions. The battle for Titan had become a symbol of human resistance. Every day the colony held out was another day that proved the coalition could be stopped. Phillips had lost many good soldiers defending the frozen moon, but she would rather die than surrender. Back on Earth, engineer Carl Jackson worked in his laboratory, surrounded by pieces of captured alien technology. 3 years of war had given humanity access to coalition equipment that would have taken centuries to develop on their own. Jackson's job was to figure out how alien devices worked and make them better. The problem with coalition ships, he explained to his assistant, is that they're built for intimidation, not efficiency. Look at this engine core. It's 3 times larger than it needs to be, just to make the ship look more impressive. Jackson had revolutionized human ship design by combining alien power sources with human engineering principles. The result was vessels that were smaller than coalition ships, but faster and more maneuverable. Every month, his improvements gave human forces a bigger advantage in combat. In another part of the galaxy, Major Lisa Stone led her Ghost Squadron through an asteroid field, hunting coalition patrol ships. Stone had become famous throughout human space for her ability to strike without warning and escape before the enemy could respond. 2 patrol cruisers dead ahead, reported her wingman. They don't know we're here. Stone smiled inside her helmet. Her fighters were equipped with the latest stealth technology, making them nearly invisible to coalition sensors. Ghost Squadron, prepare for attack run. Remember, hit fast and get out faster. The human fighters swept down on the unsuspecting alien ships like birds of prey. In less than 5 minutes, both coalition vessels were drifting wrecks. Stone's squadron disappeared back into the asteroid field before rescue ships could arrive. These tactics were being repeated throughout coalition space. Human forces had learned that they could not win through superior firepower, so they won through superior strategy. Every successful raid weakened coalition control and inspired other species to question their masters. The turning point came when Captain Ben Parker made a discovery that changed everything. During a raid on a coalition research station, his team found something unexpected. Hundreds of alien species held in what the coalition called preservation status. Parker walked through the research facility's holding areas, horrified by what he saw. Entire civilizations were kept in artificial environments, their technological development deliberately stopped by coalition scientists. Species that should have reached the stars centuries ago were still using primitive tools. "My God," Parker whispered to his team. "They're not just ruling the galaxy, they're keeping everyone else from advancing." The research station's computers contained detailed records of the coalition's activities. For thousands of years, they had systematically prevented other species from developing advanced technology. Any civilization that showed signs of rapid progress was either absorbed into the coalition or destroyed. Parker's discovery spread throughout human space and beyond. The coalition was not just an empire that demanded obedience. It was a prison that kept entire species trapped in technological infancy. Humanity's rebellion was not just about freedom for Earth, but about liberation for the entire galaxy. The news reached species that had been under coalition control for centuries. On distant worlds, alien leaders began secret communications with human agents. Rebellion was possible, and humanity had proven it could be successful. Admiral Sullivan received reports of uprisings throughout coalition space. The Viridian people had destroyed coalition facilities on their homeworld. The aquatic depths had seized control of their orbital stations. The insectoid hive clans had stopped sending tribute to coalition tax collectors. "It's working," Sullivan told President Carter during a secure communication. "Our example is inspiring others to fight back. The coalition is facing rebellions on dozens of worlds. But the coalition was not accepting defeat quietly. Supreme Commander Thek Moran, an ancient being who had served the coalition for over 1,000 years, was gathering the largest military force in galactic history. Reports reached human intelligence that every available coalition warship was being recalled from across the galaxy. Colonel Phillips received the warning while defending another coalition attack on Titan. "They're planning something big," she reported to Admiral Sullivan. Our scouts report massive fleet movements heading toward Coalition core systems. Engineer Jackson worked frantically to upgrade human defenses, knowing that the final battle was approaching. His latest designs incorporated technology stolen from a dozen different alien species, creating weapons that even the Coalition had never seen before. Major Stone's Ghost Squadron intercepted Coalition communications that confirmed their worst fears. The entire Coalition fleet was mobilizing for one massive assault on Earth itself. Supreme Commander Thekmaran intended to crush humanity's homeworld and end the rebellion permanently. "How many ships?" Admiral Sullivan asked when she received the intelligence report. "Nearly 300 capital ships," Captain Parker replied grimly, "plus support vessels and troop carriers. It's the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history." Sullivan stared at the tactical display showing Coalition fleet movements. Humanity had won many small victories, but this would be different. The Coalition was bringing everything they had to Earth, betting their entire empire on one decisive battle. "Send a message to all human forces," Sullivan ordered. "Tell them to return to Earth immediately. If we're going to make our final stand, it will be at home." Throughout human space, ships and soldiers began the long journey back to Earth. The war that had started with humanity's refusal to surrender was about to reach its climax. The fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy would be decided in the space around humanity's blue homeworld. The Coalition fleet arrived at Earth like a storm cloud of metal and death. Nearly 300 massive warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, their weapons charged and ready for the final battle. "Supreme Commander," Thekmaran stood on his command ship's bridge, looking at the small blue world that had caused so much trouble for his empire. Thekmaran was older than most civilizations. He had crushed rebellions across the galaxy for over 1,000 years, and he had never lost a war. His ancient eyes studied the human defenses gathering around their homeworld, counting their pathetic numbers. "How many ships do they have?" he asked his tactical officer. "Approximately 200 vessels, Supreme Commander. Most are small patrol craft and converted cargo ships. Their largest warship is barely 1/10 the size of our smallest cruiser." Thekmaran's mouth curved into a cold smile. The humans had fought well for primitives, but this would end their rebellion forever. Once Earth was destroyed, the other uprisings throughout the galaxy would collapse without their inspiration. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Coalition." On Luna Station, Admiral Jake Morrison watched the enormous enemy fleet approach. He had been promoted after 3 years of successful defensive operations, but nothing had prepared him for a battle of this scale. Every human ship in the solar system was taking position around Earth, ready to defend their homeworld with their lives. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving messages from President Carter." The president's face appeared on Morrison's screen, broadcasting from the secure bunker beneath the White House. "Admiral Morrison, the fate of our species rests with you and your brave crews. Fight well and know that history will remember your courage." Morrison nodded grimly. He had served in space for 20 years, but this would likely be his final battle. Around him, his officers worked at their stations with quiet determination. They all knew the odds, but none of them showed fear. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," he announced on the fleet communication channel. "Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the freedom of every species in the galaxy. Make every shot count." The Coalition fleet moved deeper into the solar system, their massive engines leaving trails of exotic energy. Thekmaran expected the humans to break and run when they saw the overwhelming force arrayed against them. Instead, the human ships held their positions around Earth, waiting for the battle to begin. But as the Coalition fleet prepared to attack, something unexpected happened. Reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. The Viridian homeworld had declared independence and destroyed Coalition bases in their system. The aquatic depths had seized control of their sector's trade routes. The insectoid hive clans were attacking Coalition facilities on dozens of worlds. "Supreme Commander," Thekmaran's communication officer reported urgently, "we're receiving distress calls from 17 different sectors. Multiple species are in open rebellion." Thekmaran's Confidence wavered for the first time in centuries. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. Somehow the humans had coordinated these uprisings to begin just as the Coalition's main fleet was attacking Earth. Admiral Kate Sullivan smiled as she read the reports flooding in from her secret contacts throughout the galaxy. For months, human agents had been working with oppressed species, teaching them tactics and providing them with captured Coalition weapons. The plan had worked perfectly. All human forces, begin the attack, Sullivan ordered from her flagship, the EDS Defiance. The battle for Earth began with humanity's newest weapon, hope. As Coalition ships engaged the human fleet, news of the galaxy-wide rebellion spread through both forces. Coalition soldiers began to realize they were not just fighting humans, but facing the collapse of their entire empire. Commander Jenny Morrison, Admiral Morrison's daughter, led a squadron of advanced fighters against the Coalition's left flank. Her ships used the latest hybrid technology, combining human engineering with alien power sources to create vessels faster than anything the Coalition had ever faced. "Ghost Squadron, follow my lead," she radioed to her pilots. "Hit their command ships and get out before they can target us." The young pilots dove toward the massive Coalition vessels like hawks attacking eagles. Their small ships darted between the alien weapons fire, too fast and agile for the Coalition's targeting systems to track effectively. Supreme Commander Thekmoran watched in growing horror as his carefully planned assault began to fall apart. His ships were designed to fight other large vessels in organized formations, not swarms of small, fast attackers using unpredictable tactics. "Focus all fire on their largest ships," he ordered desperately. "If we destroy their command vessels, the rest will surrender." But the human fleet did not follow traditional command structures. When Coalition fire destroyed one human ship, another immediately took its place. The humans fought as if every ship was capable of independent command, adapting to changing conditions without waiting for orders. Captain Ben Parker led a group of converted cargo haulers in a suicide run against Thekmoran's flagship. The civilian ships had been fitted with the most powerful weapons humanity could build, turning peaceful traders into instruments of war. "For every species the Coalition has enslaved," Parker shouted into his communicator as his ship accelerated toward the enemy command vessel. The converted cargo ship slammed into the Coalition flagship's shields, overloading them with concentrated plasma fire. The shields collapsed, leaving the massive alien vessel vulnerable to follow-up attacks. Engineer Carl Jackson's latest weapons proved devastatingly effective against Coalition armor. His hybrid technology combined the power of alien energy sources with human innovation, creating weapons that could penetrate even the strongest Coalition defenses. The tide of battle began to turn as more reports arrived from across the galaxy. The Coalition was losing control of entire sectors, with rebellion spreading faster than their remaining forces could respond. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were finally fighting for their freedom. Colonel Sarah Phillips, defending the Titan system, received word that Coalition forces throughout her sector were retreating. The aliens were pulling back to defend their core worlds, abandoning outer territories they had controlled for millennia. Major Lisa Stone's Ghost Squadron had expanded into a full wing of stealth fighters, striking Coalition supply lines throughout human space. Without reinforcements and supplies, the Coalition fleet at Earth began to weaken under sustained human attacks. Supreme Commander Thekmoran found himself trapped between the human fleet and reports of his empire's collapse. For the first time in his long life, he faced the possibility of defeat. The species he had dismissed as primitive had accomplished what no one else had managed in thousands of years. "Supreme Commander," his tactical officer reported, "we've lost contact with Fleet Command. Multiple sectors are requesting immediate reinforcement, but we have no ships to send." Thekmoran stared at the tactical display showing his fleet's deteriorating position. Half his ships were damaged or destroyed, and the humans showed no signs of weakening. Around Earth, debris from Coalition vessels drifted in silent testimony to humanity's unexpected strength. The final blow came when Admiral Morrison's forces broke through the Coalition's defensive line and attacked Thekmoran's flagship directly. Human ships swarmed around the massive alien vessel, their combined firepower overwhelming its defenses. "This is impossible," Thekmaran whispered, as his ship's systems failed around him. "How can primitives defeat the coalition?" The answer came as his flagship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Humanity had won not through superior technology, but through superior determination and the power of inspiring others to fight for freedom. 6 months later, President Carter stood in the rebuilt United Nations building signing the Terran Accords alongside representatives from dozens of formerly enslaved species. The Galactic Coalition had collapsed, replaced by the Free Systems Alliance based on principles of equality and self-determination. Admiral Morrison, now retired, stood on Luna Station's observation deck, watching Earth turn slowly below. Human. Ships launched daily to explore regions of space that had been forbidden for centuries. The galaxy was free, and it was humanity that had shown the way. The war that began with Earth's refusal to accept alien rule had ended with the liberation of countless worlds. Humanity had proven that no species should kneel to another, and the galaxy would never forget that lesson.